Oh, aspects. The aspect system in Diablo 4 is rather overwhelming for newer players, and it's not fully explained in-game. So today, I wanted to make a straight-to-the-point guide about the aspect system. We'll cover what they are, how to acquire them, how to imprint them, and finally, general tips and mistakes that you should avoid. To start, aspects are legendary properties that you can put on your different items. There's a lot of different aspects in the game for each different class, and these aspects will make your character much more powerful. There's 5 separate kinds of aspects. You have utility, resource, offensive, defensive, and mobility. If you aren't finding yourself using aspects when you're hopping into World Tier 3, you might find yourself struggling. But hold on, let me avoid getting ahead of myself. How do you actually get aspects? Well, it's simple. There's 2 general ways to acquire different legendary aspects. First, you can get them from completing different dungeons, and second, you can get them from legendary pieces of gear that you acquire from various in-game content. So let me explain that a little bit better. So let's say, for example, I have this aspect here on the battle bow of repeating, right? I'll move this away so it's not confusing. And let's say I want to pull the aspect off of this piece of gear. Well, I can do that here by going to the occultist here, and then I go to extract aspect, I put the aspect in, and I get this, which is basically a shard that holds the memory of the aspect that was previously in this bow. And then you're probably wondering, well, what do you do with that? So the way you would apply this, I'm not going to actually do it because it costs me materials, but I do also already have some aspects here. So let's say, for example, I would like to apply an aspect to my pieces of gear. I would first put in the piece of gear that I want to put an aspect on. Let's say this sword here, for example, right? Then I would go to my aspect tab. I have my aspects clearly laid out here. I would find the aspect I want. Let's just say for this example, we want the Blade Dancer's offensive aspect. I take that from my inventory, place it here. And you'll notice if I'm willing to pay these materials, I will be able to put this aspect on this sword. It's basically transferring the property that's being held in what I'm calling these memories of these aspects onto the sword. So you can view the aspect tab here as a way to hold these aspects rather than having to hold all the pieces of gear that have the aspect on them. So now that I've shown you how to imprint aspects and showed you how they work, I want to share some general tips and tricks about the aspects in Diablo 4. I'll try to go through these rapid fire. Tip number 1, don't apply a ton of aspects while you're leveling from 1 to 50. You can imprint 1 or 2 aspects here and there, especially the more important ones, but while you're leveling from 1 to 50, which we call the early game, you'll be wasting a lot of materials if you're imprinting an aspect on every piece of gear that you're getting. Keep in mind, you don't really need these legendary aspects to level from 1 to 50, they're more of a nice to have. Tip number 2, if you get a maximum percentage roll on an aspect, save it for the later game. In the late game, you're going to want all the power you can get, so saving maximum percentage rolls for good pieces of gear later on is almost always advisable. For tip number 3, while you're leveling, you should make sure that you're trying to unlock all the dungeon aspects for the class that you're leveling. This is something you'll want to do for general renown gain anyway, but you may as well target the dungeons that have the aspects that your build uses the most. For tip number 4, make sure that you understand that there are resources available to you online that show you where all of these aspects are while you don't have the map fully identified. I'll leave a link in the description below to one of these interactive maps that you can use to target certain dungeons and find the aspects that you need for your certain build. For my final tip about aspects, I do want to mention here, you see how on my aspect here I can see rapid fire has a 66% and then it says in gray 60 to 90%. If you want to understand how good your rolls actually are, you should go into your options here, and then you want to go to gameplay and turn on Advanced Tooltip Compare and Advanced Tooltip Information. The Advanced Tooltip option will let you see the percentages like this, and then the Compare option is really nice because you can hit Shift while you're hovering a certain piece of gear, and it's going to pull up a comparison with your current weapon that's equipped. There you have it. Aspects explained in Diablo 4. The system might seem a little overwhelming at the start, but once you understand how it works, it actually becomes relatively simple. But if you've watched me before, you know I like to keep these videos as short as possible. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you've enjoyed this video or I taught you something new today, make sure to subscribe. I've been posting Diablo 4 content every day and will be for the foreseeable future, and I'd love to see more familiar faces on every consecutive video. But with that out of the way, my name has been valued, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.